Hi, my name is Jason, and I'm here on behalf of Berkeley's Language Exchange Program and the Language Exchange Program group for CS169 at UC Berkeley to kind of talk about the web application we built over the course of the semester. To first give a little background on our client, the Language Exchange Program is a really cool program hosted out of the Student Learning Center. The aim of this program is to kind of help students learn a new language in a less formal way than a class setting. The kind of premise is that every student is at least fluent in one language, so everyone has something to offer, and many people want to pick up a second language. LEP, I'm going to abbreviate Language Exchange Program as LEP from now on. LEP aims to accomplish this in one of two ways. The first is to develop a pairing system. How this works is that students who have complementary and mutual interests in language are paired together so they can foster growth and help each other in expanding their language skills. For example, if I'm fluent in English and let's say I want to learn Japanese, and a second student, John Doe, is fluent in Japanese and wants to learn English, we would essentially get paired together since we have complementary language skills. We have complementary language interests. In that case, we can each help each other. I can teach John Doe English, John Doe can teach me Japanese, we both benefit from the relationship. Some students might not want this pairing system, so Language Exchange Program offers groups as well. How groups work is that when you submit an application, you indicate whether or not you want to lead a group discussion. A group discussion is a more passive way to learn, where essentially there's one lecturer that leads a group of variable size, let's say 5 to 10 people, and it's mostly just one language that they teach that whole group on once a week, twice a week, however often they want to meet. So with these two approaches, they really think that they can grasp a lot of students who want to learn a new language and really foster that growth and help them learn that language. Now, recently they've run into some growing pains, I guess. How they currently handle all applications is through a Google form. Now, Google form is fine if you don't have many people, but they're starting to reach around 200 to 300 applicants every semester, so it's getting kind of ridiculous. Furthermore, they have an algorithm that kind of works, whereas they kind of run the algorithm and manually pair students. Again, this isn't the most inefficient way. It's really hard to keep track of everything through Google Forms. And besides that, groups and information is distributed through various social media, and there's no real centralized source for that. Like I said earlier, they're running into some big growing pains. So the goal of our group was to talk to our client, Quinn, and kind of solve all these things and build a web app that will allow for more organic growth in the future. And we ran into a lot of other considerations on the way, but first I'd just like to get started with showing the app. Let me start up the server. Give it some time to think. Whoops. So I'm just running it locally right now since it works faster for me that way. So when you try to access the site, first there's a login page. The first consideration is that the language exchange program is only open for UC Berkeley students and Berkeley associated students, so we have to have them authenticate with a Berkeley email address. The issue there is that going through CalNet, Berkeley's login system, is extremely long and arduous process and requires an application period that is much longer than the time we had. So we actually found a workaround. Since CalNet runs through Gmail, if you type in your berkeley.edu through Gmail, that's me, Jason Gia, it'll automatically redirect you to CalNet. So this is kind of how we got around it. And inside the application, we just checked that any valid email that was logged in must have been a Berkeley.edu email. And if it wasn't, then we forced the log out and made them do it again. So the very first thing is that when you log onto the website, it checks whether or not you have submitted an application. And if you haven't, it asks you to submit one. So as I said, I've already been playing around this, so I've submitted an application. So I'm going to demonstrate what you can do to edit it. But first of all, once you submit an application, it takes you to the show page, shows you all the basic information you want. Your email, the languages, your language preferences, and whether or not you're in a pair or a group. Right now I'm not in any. We'll get to that later. So first I can edit my profile. There's some stuff that any application really needs. In this case, your name, student ID, not my real student ID, but one that works, academic title, what major I am, whether I'm a domestic or international student, self-identified gender, gender preferences, language I speak with native fluency. In this case, it'd just be English, and I can't find Chinese, Mandarin. Yeah, I'd be pretty interested in learning Arabic. Let's say I also want to learn Swedish. That sounds awesome. Let's do Swedish too. Do I want to lead a language group? No. I can meet any day for now. How many hours? How do you maintain your motivational meet to How do you maintain motivation to meet with your partner weekly? Okay, so this is kind of the basic application that any user has to submit. We ask a lot of various information such as your academic title, your major, your residency, self-identified gender, and gender preferences, because all of these considerations go into the pairing algorithm to try to find the most optimal pair so that everyone's happy with the arrangements. So I'm fine with that. I'm going to submit my application again. And all of this should show up on this page as soon as it loads. Fantastic. I messed up and checked the box, but so default shows up, but that's fine for now. So after that, let's say I want to join a group. So I already seeded this with a bunch of groups. So let's see, what group do I want to join? Fantastic. I'm going to join the Swedish group. That seems useful. So now that I join the Swedish group, it processes me and imagines that I'm in the system. And it even gives you a nice message saying I've joined the group. So let's go home. And now it shows that I am currently in the Swedish group. And I'm the only member in it. So moving on to timesheets. Currently I have no timesheets. Let's add a timesheet. So the goal of a timesheet is that Quinn and the language exchange program kind of wants a way where people can keep track of how much they practice, keep a way to keep people accountable, and even if not really to keep people accountable, to kind of see how people actually use the service. So I'm going to add a timesheet. Let's say this week I practiced Swedish for 80 hours. Oh, ask when I practiced. What day is it today? 5th. Let's say I practiced on the 5th for 80 hours. I had a fantastic week of Swedish practicing. I submit that. And then now this timesheet gets associated with me. Oh, hours invalid. I guess I can't practice for that many hours. Just today for 1 hour. How many hours per week did you practice on this day? We can probably phrase that better, but let's say I just practiced 1 hour. That actually makes sense that I can't practice 80 hours in a day. It's a good thing we caught that. So now I've practiced 1 hour of Swedish on May 5th, and this shows up. So this gives a lot of really cool information for the admin. And on the user side, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so it even gives a nice little notes telling when I have to submit an application by. After this, no more applications are accepted, and when you log in, it just automatically redirects you to the show page. If you don't have an application, it just tells you that it's kind of too late to apply. Maybe you should talk to the administrator themselves. So that's essentially how this looks like from the user's point of view. It's pretty self-explanatory. So now I want to demonstrate what the admin sees this as. So in order to do that, I have to change the seed file so that I am an admin. Right now it says false. Let's change this to true. Awesome. I'm an admin now, and then let's recreate the database. Give it a second to think. So the user side is pretty straightforward. To be honest, nothing really changed. There's a couple extra cool features such as the timesheets and allowing a user to join a group from the application rather than just showing up. This makes the user's life a little bit easier, but the core functionality they added was from the admin side. The main growing pain they had was it was really hard for admins to keep track of everything, to really do anything, and really get any useful information from previous semesters and learn how to improve for future semesters. So the majority of our work, besides setting this all up, went toward actually improving this from the admin's point of view and making it a lot easier for them to use the service. So now that I sign in, it should redirect me to the admin's page. Fantastic, so I updated myself to an admin. So the current application deadline is May 6th, since it automatically defaults to whatever the next day is if you clear the database. Let's say I want the application deadline to be next Monday. Submit that, now I can change the deadline. Awesome. So this kind of allows any administrator to really see when applications are due and when they should submit stuff, and they can change this pretty easily. So this was one of the first issues. Before, you just close the Google application form, so this didn't really help that much, but it's a nice little feature we added. Admins can also see all of the users. So we had a pretty small seed file, so it's just not that many people. We can also sort it by first name. Yep, that's pretty much it. Okay, so administrators get to kind of look at more student information. Let's say I really want to look at Jane Doe. I can look at Jane Doe's profile from here and see her user ID, what's her email, her languages, her what group members she has, and her language preferences. This might be useful in case any administrator actually wants to look at any students. And there's also a few extra tabs here. Let's say that I know that Jill Moore. Let's say I know that Jill Moore has been completely inactive this whole semester and hasn't shown up to anything, and I want to deactivate it. The reason I want to deactivate users is because the issue is that you kind of want to keep the most up-to-date users in the database. Just talking about what to get the analytics from. So if you have a bunch of really inactive users in your database for supplying analytics, kind of skews the results. Let's also say that Robin Zhang has been really interested in getting more involved, and she really wants to work for the language exchange program. Well, I can do that. Let's grant her admin privileges. And now, if you see, Robin Zhang is an admin. There's a couple more things you can do here. Besides that, as I mentioned earlier, in the application process, if you saw, I can indicate whether or not I wanted to be a group leader. Now, the thing is, anyone can say they want to be a group leader, but it actually takes some kind of commitment. You have to prep lectures beforehand. You have to actually know what you're talking about. So the general process is that you can't just let anyone who applies be a group leader. You have to kind of let them have a one-to-one with any administrator. So in this case, I'm the administrator. Let's say that Jack Doe came up and talked to me. He really wanted to be a group administrator, a group leader. Was really into it, had a solid plan laid out, and then all right, I want to make him a facilitator. I think he'd do great as leading it. And then sometimes admins don't do good jobs, and you want to revoke administrator privileges for people. Let's say I gave Robin privileges earlier, but man, like, she doesn't really want to be an admin anymore. She'd rather just be a normal student. So I'm going to revoke her admin privileges. I just let admin. And Chris, this is actually a GSI. Let's say he's been doing a terrible job. I want to fire him. Just kidding. I don't want to fire you, Chris. You are a great GSI. I could also revoke his administrative privileges. And every time I do that, administrators are gone. They're no longer administrators. And they lose all these privileges that I now have, and they just get reverted to normal users. And you see them here. So I'm going to just leave them here for now. Then I like to move on to, I'll go to groups first. So administrators have a similar view of groups as students. The only difference is that administrators aren't really going to, I guess, join a group. So for them, they can add a group. If you add a group, it just redirects you to a form to ask you to fill all the information for a new group. Say I want to do language English, day of the week Monday, time 1 p.m., location 405 Soda Hall. Additional information. Hi, English. Learn from me. And then I can create the group. And now my group will show up here. That's pretty much it. I can also view the information for every single group. And it kind of tells you who the facilitator is, who the members are, their user IDs, what the time is, and the location. And then the heart of the problem will be solved. The main growing pain they had was that given so many users, you need to find efficient groups for every single user. But it's really hard to do that without an algorithm. Even with an algorithm, it's kind of an NP-hard problem where it's a version of the traveling salesman problem, but the issue is groups can be variable sizes of 2 to 3, where sometimes if you really couldn't find a perfect pairing among people, but you had 3 people that fit relatively well, you would just want 3 of those people to be in a pair. I guess it shouldn't really be called a pair anymore, but it'd be a pair. The issue there is that is kind of a hard problem to solve efficiently, and since this class wasn't really centered around the algorithm, we put a lot of time into it, but we didn't solve it exactly up to the specifications. But essentially what happens is when you click pair students, it generates a CSV file of every single user. From that, we wrote a Python script that reads in this file and takes all the students and generates pairs from the students. So when you click it, it pairs all the students. And then it tells you pairs have been generated. I'm going to go back to pairs and I'll see all the students and all the pairs. So awesome. I have 3 full pairs of students. As you can see, the pair students button disappears. The reasoning for this is that the administrators want to run the algorithm exactly once at the beginning of the semester, hence the application deadline. They want to run it once at the end of the application deadline. And if other people ask, they can manually create pairs. I don't know anyone's email off the top of my head, so I'm not going to fill this information in, but they can manually create pairs that students want to learn by themselves. So after that, you have to talk to the administrators if you miss the application. Awesome. So moving on to timesheets. So in this case, I'm not really sure if we see any timesheets, but if you wanted to, you can go to each user and check their timesheets. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone actually has timesheets in our seed file, but maybe. Oh, Iris has some seeded timesheets. So essentially, it show up like this on the day they practice, what language they practice, and how many hours. And then you can edit the user's timesheet if you don't believe them, or delete that timesheet. And finally, one of the other features that the language exchange program really wanted was some sort of data analytics. Now, it's not really useful to know that a lot of people use this service if they don't know what they use it for, what they get out of it, what can be improved. So data analytics provides some really rudimentary analytics. Again, this was only something we started working on the last iteration, so we didn't have that much time. Given more time, we would really advance this. So the two most basic things is that we allow them to download CSV files of all the users and all the pairs. And besides that, it provides some really rudimentary information, such as the number of applicants, the current number of pairs, number of administrators, and number of groups. And then just kind of a breakdown of the general population who's using it. We have a lot of undergraduates, one grad student, one instructor, one staff, overwhelmingly female population, good mix of computer science, business, and psych majors, and mostly domestic with some international students. So the point of this is that it kind of gives the administrators a way to, as I learn about what they did well in the past semester, what they did poorly, and how to target future marketing and services toward the students that will be applying to this, and hopefully to learn from their mistakes and provide a better service for the next generation of language exchange program users. And that is pretty much this whole app. So we spent the last 8 weeks working on this, and we thought it was really successful, and our client is really happy. For any questions, please direct it toward the language exchange program. And we highly encourage everyone to try out the service. We looked at the service. It's really a great way to learn languages. Anyways, thanks for listening to this screencast, and I hope that was informative.